Vanakkam, Namaste, Suswagatam, and welcome to another session of Integral Mathematics. So, today, since when I came here, since there is a Darshan Mas exhibition going on, I dwelled upon this small paper that they have kept at the entrance. And my eyes got attention to something that Mother has said about teaching. I would just like to read it at the start of the session. She said, "One must not confuse a religious teaching and a spiritual teaching. Religious teaching belongs to the past and stops all progress. Spiritual teaching is the teaching of the future. It enlightens the consciousness and prepares it for the future realization." It's such an apt message, and I smiled when I read this. But with the thought of this, let's get into a moment of silence before we start our session and we'll get into Sankhya philosophy. So far we have talked about what really Sankhya means. Sankhya is, we call it a sandhi of two concepts or two words. One is san and kya. San literally means something that right, and kya can be understood as knowledge. Sankhya also has a meaning together. We call it, in mathematics, we use it as an action of enumeration. When we want to count something, we use Sankhya. So this is a book that enumerates the objects of the world. Right now we are only enumerating the objects. We are not getting into the permutations and combinations of what is happening. This is also a term that is associated with liberation. So it's a knowledge which is there, which exists in order to support the liberation. It talks about Sat, that means something that which remains or it cannot be eliminated further. And it also brings us face to face with reality. Reality of what? Reality of dualism of the existence. So dualism is the prominent factor in Sankhya philosophy. So far we talked about at the beginning of creation, where a small spandana which was created, which woke up Prakriti from its immortal or dormant state, and that gave rise to three gunas: Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Earlier they existed in equilibrium, but this spandana disturbed the equilibrium, which gave birth to a lot of things. So we talked about how it gave birth to intellect, buddhi, and then how the ahankara was created out of intellect. Yes, and then out of this ahankara we learnt about how 16 Vikaras came into existence. 16 Vikaras consist of 11 Indriyas and 5 Tanmatras or subtle elements. Yes. Now 11 Indriyas are your Karmendriyas, your hands, your feet, the excretory organs, your reproductive organs, yeah, and then you have your Jnanendriyas, which are your sense of looking, hearing, which we learn in school, yeah, and we have Manas. So like that we have 11 Karmendriyas, Jnanendriyas, and the mind, which kind of works on all of them. We saw that how they function, And then we also talked about 5 subtle elements, 5 tanmatras, which are in their purest form, which are not consist of matter yet. That means the sound, and then there was air and water and earth. I mean, for which consist of the pure tanmatra. That means sound, touch, smell. Then there was light. Yes, and out of those tanmatras, when they combined, like out of sound, ether came into existence. Now this space, ether, is the material counterpart of sound. Yes, and then when sound and light were together, then the fire was created. Yes, because fire you can see, it has space, but you can't really taste it. It doesn't have that element yet. And then one more tanmatra was added into it, touch, and then air was created. And then one more tanmatra was added into it, taste, and then water was created. And then one more tanmatra, smell, which created earth. So these 5 gross elements. And that is the stage which created 3 states: state of pleasure, state of pain, and state of delusion. And that is the prominent, and that the whole world revolves around this. Before this creation of 5 gross element, it was not, the segregation was not so prominent, the experience was neither painful or pleasant or delusional. And that has a very prominent connection with our sattva, raja, tama guna. So before writing this, I would like to just read some of the shlokas from Sankhya philosophy. So you know that our story has started with a Brahman who came to Kapila Muni, and he wants to know what is true, what is the truth. So these 3 questions is what we are trying to answer through Sankhya philosophy. He asked Kapila Muni 3 questions. What is of all things most important? Kim aham param? That's the first question. What is actual truth? Kim yatha tathya? And what must I do in order that I may have done what is fitting to be done? Kim krutva krutakrityaha swamiti? Yeah, I would love to write it in Sanskrit. I think that would make more sense. But yeah. And the answer that Kapila Muni gave is the aphorism of this is the aphorism of Kapila. So this is what we are discussing. We are in the middle of discussing it. So we segregated Prakriti into 8 counterparts. We learnt about 16 Vikaras, and in last session we talked at length with what is soul, the Purusha. We saw how Purusha is plural, it's multiple, it's not just one, and why it's so diversified. Today we will be talking about 3 Gunas for sure, and then we will see what is Sanchara and Prati Sanchara. And hopefully in another 4 sessions we will be able to finish the Sankhya philosophy. So for 3 qualities, Kapila Muni says, well, the Brahman asks, Atha kim traigunyam nam? Uchyate, Kapila Muni says, Sattva, Raja, Tamam, iti traigunyam. Triguna eva traigunyam. So what is Sattva then? So Sattva literally, it's always a close translation. Sattva can be translated closely as goodness. Yeah, but it's not exactly, it's not so biased to be a goodness. Sattva is a quality which goes very close to being a quality of being in an inner equilibrium. Yeah. Rajas is foulness and tamas is darkness. Now again, the English translation should not be taken literally. These are these words that go closely with the Sanskrit counterpart. What does goodness means or sattva means? This is the state where you experience calmness. Yeah, prasada. Laghava, lightness. We say that when we see a baby smiling, that is laghava. That is the sense of, that the feeling that you feel. By word lightness, that's what you mean. Complacency, yeah, prasanna, yeah, you're feeling really fresh, yeah, or that, and then tushti, abhishta. When we say we do abhishta chintan, yeah, so that is the quality of where you have all your attainment of wishes, or when you have patience, titiksha, or you have santosh, joy. Yeah? So qualities like this come under the province of sattva guna. Yeah? It basically consists of happiness. And it has nothing to do with which state you are in. Yes? Rajasa is like something which is always moving. It's a sense where you cannot sit still. It requires some action. So Rajas is that quality. So foulness shouldn't be, any word here shouldn't be taken negatively. Of course, every word has a negative and a positive counterpart. So here, when the experience of grief, shok, tapa, udvega, dosha, yeah, all these qualities where you experience grief or distress, or you feel separation from your loved one, or you feel excitement, whether you're feeling happy but you're extremely excited, that is the province of Rajas, yes? Or if you're feeling anxiety, or you feel like finding faults in something, yeah? So it's a state of constant restlessness which brings you pain. Yeah? And then the third one is tamas. This is very, I like this part because I usually used to feel before reading Sankhya philosophy that sattva and tamas guna, they are opposite of each other. But that's not the case actually. Tamas is ignorance. It's the feeling of disgust. It's the feeling of heaviness. Or when you say something, oh, I'll do it, but I don't do it. That's the feeling of sloth, yeah? Or you feel drowsy. Or you feel intoxicating yourself in order to help you cope up with something. So these qualities actually consist of delusion, and that is what tamas is so far. Yes, so that's what these three qualities are defined at. Yeah. Now I want to go back to our graph which we learnt. Yeah. So I'll be using blue color for sattva, red for rajas, and green for tamas. Now what happened here was, we have Prakriti and we have Purusha. And all this is happening is because it is intended for Purusha. Yeah? So we have intellect that came into existence, and then there is ahankara. Now this ahankara bifurcates to create 16 vikaras, and there is a reason that 16 vikaras get created and they are bifurcated, and the reason is rajas, because rajas cannot sit still. Sri Aurobindo says that sattva lies at the core. And it is concealed by rajas. Which is consist by tamas. That's why Prakriti in its initial and ignorant state is called jada. And this has to open up in order for sattva to come to the surface. Right? Now this rajas, which is in the middle, which is like a intermittent force lying between sattva, which is goodness, and delusion, which is tamas, always kind of interacts with both. It cannot, it's like a friend who is sleeping with two other friends and he cannot fall asleep. And he goes and he tries to wake up sattva. Now sattva is a light sleeper. Tamas is a heavy sleeper. So he goes and he troubles tamas. I want you to try and imagine what kind of interaction that would be. A force which sits still with somebody who is heavy sleeper, who is ignorant. Yeah? And that gives rise to your 5 tanmatras. Yeah? Sound, and then there is light, then there is touch, taste, and smell. Yeah? Which goes into akash or ether, jala, sorry, this is fire, tej, vayu, aap, and prithvi. Yeah? That's the reason why these are there in existence. They are there to support everything, but they are really like non-participatory, isn't it? The reason why sound is the way it is, sound itself is not affected by anything, but everything else is affected by sound. This is because of the qualities of rajas and tamas and their interaction. Now imagine what happens when rajas interacts with sattva. It gives birth to 10, 11 indriyas. Yes? So this gets separated. You have manas. Manas, by the way, in Sanskrit, it is considered as one of the indriyas, mind, your mind, because it has 2 jobs. Either it clarifies thing for you, or it doubts it. These are the only 2 jobs. And then you have 5 indriyas. Or jnanendriyas, I will say like eyes, or seeing, ear, nose, you have tongue, which are the counterparts. They supplement the 5 tanmatras. Yes? What needs to be tasted? Yeah? Taste itself is created, which doesn't care whether anybody uses it or not, but tongue is there to experience the taste. Yes? And then there is skin to sense the touch. And then you have your hands, you have your feet, you have your speech, vak, yes. And then you have your excretory organ, and you have last generation, organ of generation. Yes? Now give it a minute and try to imagine the interaction between the sattva and the rajas. Sattva is somebody who has goodness, he has kindness, he has the qualities and virtues. He's always, the quality of virtue lies under sattva. And rajas is somebody who requires action. Now your karmendriyas, your jnanendriyas and manas possess both of these qualities. Yes, they are there and capable of doing good, but they need, in order for them to exist, they need to be doing something. Yes, that's the only way. Like if you don't use your hands and feet, you don't kind of the full potential, then it limits your ability to do things. But they are there. Yes, and they also have a capacity to do good or bad. Yes, they are capable of doing goodness, or they also fall under foulness. So rajas and sattva, that's because these 2. Tamas is a bit far away from there, but it's always, none of them are like without the existence of the other, but you see the prominence of sattva and rajas in our karmendriyas and jnanendriyas, which we learned so far. So these are the 3 gunas so far. let's take a minute to read what Sri Aurobindo said about the guna. To resort to a tamasic inaction is just what the ignorant will do if this truth is thrust upon them. The discriminating mind in them will fall into a false division, a false opposition, buddhi bheda. Their active nature and their intelligence will be divided against each other and produce a disturbance and confusion without true issue, a false and self-deceiving line of action, mithyakara, or else a mere tamasic inertia, cessation of works, diminution of the will to life and action, not therefore a liberation, but rather a subjection to the lowest of the three gunas, to tamas. It's very easy to fall for tamas. The principle of ignorance and inertia, or else they will not be able to understand at all. They will find fault with this higher teaching, assert against it their present mental experience, their ignorant idea of free will, and yet more confirmed by the plausibility of their logic in their bewilderment and the deception of ego and desire, lose their chance of liberation in a deeper, more obstinate confirmation of ignorance. You need to understand that we are in the process of evolution, right? So before us, there was an evolution of animals who had a very strong rajas. And before that, we had trees. Probably we can call it as very strong tamas because there's a lot of inertia there. Yes, there is a life force. But now, we are into the next stage of existence or evolution where we are witnessing this quality of sattva. Yes, that's why I was always curious about why mother liked flowers. You know, flowers were her favorite, no? And when I see the revealing, it signifies the revealing of sattva, you know, through the tamas and rajas. Yeah. So when it's closed and when the petals open, the action itself of opening could be, we can draw parallel to rajas, and what we witness in the middle can be sattva. And it's such a beautiful message that we witness every single day. She could have chosen anything. She could have chosen butterflies. Pondicherry has beautiful butterflies. But she chose flowers. And I was always curious, why flowers? And when I was reading through this, for some reason, mother's flowers I would always witness and their meanings would always come forth. Very interesting to draw parallels upon. Which takes me to my next section, which I want to talk about, is what is Sanchara and Prati Sanchara. Now you need to realize that our physical body, our mental being and our vital being, they all have their own way of functioning. They are independent of each other, yet they are interacting with each other very strongly. You know. So when we come into existence, first the consciousness descends, and then slowly the mental being and the vital being and the physical being in that order get formed, right? And they have their own speed of functioning. You know, mental being is really fast. It can go in outer space within a speck of a second. Yeah, vital being can run really far too. Physical being has its own physical limitations. Imagine something getting manifested at a very different levels with very different speeds. I'm curious why it's so. It would have been much easier to have just one of those, you know. But no, we have these three beings at least. We are not even talking about the psychic being. But this sanchara is this process of development. This process which is done because it is intended for Purusha. Yes? So, the creation of intellect, buddhi, of ahankara, the creation, the interaction between rajas, sattvic and tamas, and then the creation of this is a sanchara. This whole thing is called sanchara. Imagine the baby is being born, it is intended to be here on this planet. It is intended for, the soul is there and it has a purpose, right? Now this soul, because that soul needs to fulfill its purpose here on the planet Earth, the Prakriti goes through all this Sanchara, and then when it reaches Ahankara, it has Ahankara is of three kinds. Yeah, Ahankara is modifying or active. It is origin of elements. It gives when it originates the elements, it also creates gods with it. We will talk about it in the next subtle elements, and then it creates gross elements. Prati Sanchara is opposite. Yes. So Utpatti is Sanchara. Then what is the opposite of that? Pralaya. Pralaya is Prati Sanchara. Prati Sanchara is the process of going back to its origin. But does it happen in reverse order? No. Like if the flower blooms, it doesn't close off again, right? It wilts off. Yeah, that is the Prati Sanchara. So death is a process of Prati Sanchara. So first your thoughts will be there, vital thoughts go later, but your soul escapes first, and then your vital goes a bit slower, and your physical body even goes slower. But it has to go back to where it goes into gross elements, and the gross elements to tanmatras, and tanmatras to ahankara and intellect. Yes, and that's where we go back to our sat. Yes, so that is basically Prati Sanchara. Now the most interesting part, which is my favorite, is this: the modifying self-consciousness, which gives rise to the gods and the senses that it produces. And these senses and the gods can be defined in these three terms: Adhyatma, Adhyatma. Then there is Adibhuta, which is the functioning of the Adhyatma, or it's the province of the organ. And then there is Adidevata. It's the counterpart which supports the Adibhuta. Why that Adhyatma is there in the existence. Yes, we will start with Manas. So there is your intellect, there is Buddhi. And why it is there? What is the province? What is the Adibhuta of there? Buddhi is there to understand whatever is there to be understood. And Brahma is its deity, Adidevata. Then there is Ahankara. Ahankara is there to believe whatever is there to be believed. And its deity is Rudra, a version of Shankara. Yeah? Rudra is a very, it's a, I think we can call it a tamasic. Rudra is a violent or, of Shankara. Then there is mind, and moon is the Adidevata, Chandra. That's why you can see that with the waning and waxing of moon, our mind really, is in harmonization with that. Earlier people used to really worship these deities with the consciousness and understanding of what effects they are having on which body or counterpart. Then there is your sense of hearing, and Akash, ether, space, is its Adidevata. Yeah? It really works on the province of sense of hearing, is whatever there is need to be heard. That's one of the reasons why there is so much importance for Omkar in our we can call it our culture, or in Vedantic culture. Then there is sense of touch, and air is the Adidevata for that. Yes. Then you have sight, and Surya, sun, is the Adidevata for that. People who knew, they will always go early in the morning, and they will they will show their gratitude to the deity, which is really giving support to their sense or sight of seeing, for the sight and seeing in them. Then there is jiva, which needs to be tasted, and water. Aap is Adi Devata for that. Smell, earth, voice, Saraswati, or also fire. Very interesting. Both of them are the Adi Devata for Vak. Then you have hands, and Indra is the Adi Devata. Indra is basically, we say he's the god of gods, and he has a direct, all the sensory organs are under his influence, right? But directly he influences our hands. And then there are feet, and Vishnu is Adi Devata for that. Whatever needs to be gone over. By literally that means that whatever experience you're, going through, which can also, pada doesn't always have to mean your literal feet, but you're walking through the life, yes, and Vishnu is Adi Devata for that. And then there is organ of excretion, Mitra is Adi Devata. And then lastly there is organ of generation, that means which also is there. The province is whatever there is to enjoy, and it needs to be enjoyed. And Prajapati, we also call him a Brahma, and he is the Adi Devata for that. We are almost at the end of the session, but I would like to end with something very interesting that Sri Aurobindo has written about these three. There are, according to the Sankhya philosophy, accepted in this respect by the Gita, three essential qualities or modes of the world energy, and therefore also of human nature. Sattva, the made of poise, knowledge and satisfaction. Rajas, the made of passion, action and struggling emotion. Tamas, the made of ignorance and inertia. And if you want to understand it in a very simple way, in a symbolism, then Sattva to the preserver of Vishnu. Vishnu can be seen as somebody, as a reflection of Sattva Guna. Rajas, you can see as Brahma. And Shiva is Tamas. Now if we go back to our slide, and if we see Adi Devata, Vishnu is Adi Devata of Pada, feet. Very interesting to think over. Rudra is Adi, Prajapati is for whatever needs to be enjoyed. So you see the organs, how they are dominant by Rajas, Sattva or Tamas, based on who is the deity. Prajapati, Brahma, who Sri Aurobindo relates to Rajas Guna, is with Upasthanam, and he is also with Buddhi. Very interesting. Yeah. So your Buddhi is always in a need of something that needs to be understood, right? We always are seeking something. Yes, it's a quality of Rajas. Rudra, quality of Tamas, relates to your self-consciousness, your ahankara. Yeah.
Mitra and the sun.
Mitra is also. Yes.
So is it the way of connecting?
It's so in our philosophy, like Prajapati and Brahma, they are different. They are the same people, but in the different context. So is Mitra and Sun. So the synonyms are there for some reason.
But it's also the different qualities of the sun.
Yes, exactly. So like Rudra is a version of Shiva, but Shiva is Shiva. So Rudra, the version is something that is deity for ahamkara, right? So it has to be understood this way. So it's because there is a multiple Purusha and there is a plurality of Purusha. So I think this is what I wanted to share today. Thank you so much for your patience and see you next month. Unless you have any questions, Urmilaji, of course.
So I had a question about for Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, they also are the swabhava of a person, which also means that each individual also has a certain predominant quality of being sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. How does it fit? Because this whole thing is a very logical, step-by-step progression of the argument or the premise that you have put into place, which is, which falls very properly in the setup that you have put into place. But now if we talk about, Sri Aurobindo also talks about the swabhava of a person, which again, in order to transcend to the higher mind or the overmind, one needs to overcome one's own swabhava.
Yes.
So how does that fall into the logic of the premise that you have created?
Of course. It's such a beautiful question. I always come back to the what Sri Aurobindo said about evolution. He says that you don't have to let go of everything that is earthly possession. You have to take it with you, isn't it? And the best way to understand Sattva, Rajas, Tamas is to read a comic book that has been written on it. And this is, I came across this in one of the restaurants, and it is written by an Aurovillian, I think. So, in a human, I think Sattva, it represents somewhere here, and on the upper part of your body. Rajas is your action, your middle part of the body, and Tamas, which is jada, which is inertia, people who like sitting a lot and not moving, at the end, at the bottom of your body. Yeah, and there is always a state of equilibrium and inequilibrium going on between you, especially when you are looking to learn something. Now we are seekers, right? That's the quality of Rajas. We are learning something new. The moment we learn something new, let's say if we learn something on a mental plane, then your vital and the physical and the mental are in the state of inequilibrium. And then Mother says that you need to rest at that point of time, because then it takes time for the other beings to come in the equilibrium. So there is always, so we are going through these stages of constant equilibrium and inequilibrium.
The flux,
the flux is always there. The ultimate goal is to having all three gunas in a complete equilibrium, right? But it's easier said than done, So this is how it is. So every time you're learning something, you're going into a state of inequilibrium, and then you have to give yourself time. If you learn a physical skill, like if you're learning, my son is learning horse riding. It was really hard for him, but now he's learning something at the level of physical being. He gets really tired. Now, getting tired is a sign that you have lost your equilibrium, and you need to rest to bring it back. I think it's as simple as this for me at this moment. So, yeah, I hope I kind of went close to the answer. Is there anything you wanted to ask?
Yes, what I also realize is that there is something that exists on the global or on the universal level, and the same exists within you. So just as there are these inequilibriums that are created on the universal level, or in the thought process, or in the step-by-step thing that you mentioned.
Absolutely,
it's the same inequilibrium that exists within us, or within our being.
Yes, that is true. We kind of either be inward or outward. We can either be one at a time. What we need to practice is going inward and outward, and inward and outward. And when we practice that rhythm, I think then we kind of remove ourselves from a self-conflict or the conflict that we come across through the surroundings. And that has to be replicated on a very micro level to have a global impact. So it's a very wide and vast and big process which needs to be executed at a very micro level. And one of the reasons why there are conflicts like this is because we are not really, it's a lack of knowledge. We are falling into adhyana. Now when we say about intellect, buddhi. I didn't speak much about intellect, but there are 8 types of buddhis. So there is dharma, and then there is opposite of that, adharma. There is aishwarya, and there is anaishwarya. There is vairagya, and then there is avairagya. Yeah, and then there is one more. I always forget. So basically, dharma basically is walking the path which is righteous. Yeah, and what consequence it has on you? It uplifts. Best way of saying is urdhva gamana of your soul. Yeah, it rises you on the planes of whatever planes they are there. Aishwarya doesn't mean being prosperity. Not really. Aishwarya doesn't mean monetary prosperity, but its literal meaning that translates in Sankhya philosophy is having that power or having that quality of paying attention to the minute details. And Kapila Muni says it has to be so minute that you should even be able to see through the rocks or particles of rock. And that is Aishwarya according to him. Vairagya is not really, even if you are sitting on a throne and even if you are surrounded by all the conveniences, you realize that you are not that. Yes, that is Vairagya. Yes, and then there is 4th one, which I absolutely forgot. So sorry about that. So that having that is kind of helps you in the process of evolution, and also it helps you to achieve that inner equilibrium and having that knowledge. Jnana is the 4th one. Jnana, knowledge. Having the right knowledge. What we are having right now, any knowledge that is there in the world, is ajnana. The knowledge, true knowledge, is the knowledge that takes you closer to the truth. And that's the only knowledge. It is not there to help you succeed in your career or help you become some prominent personality. The knowledge is the true knowledge. That's why it's the Sankhya philosophy. It's that one that takes you close to the reality and lets you see it as it is. Yeah. So Sankhya philosophy is, you can call it as a part of a jnana, because it really, I always imagine like how great observer Kapila Muni was, that he was able to dissect and segregate and sort what was there and also put an order to it. So I think that is a quality of jnana for me. And having these 4 qualities, manifesting those 4 qualities within you is a continuous process.
And ultimately the journey or the destination for all this is towards sattva.
No, nothing towards sattva. So what happens is, if we have a dominance of sattva, then you are
already there.
You are there. You are up. But you are forgetting everything. Forgetting the action. You are not doing any action. And then it's very easy to fall into tamas, because tamas is a quality of not doing anything, inertia, right? If you are only in rajas, then you are really you are running behind the survival. Yes, you are barely surviving. You are doing enough to survive, that's it. You are restless, constantly restless. You want to survive, want to. And if you are in tamas, then you don't care about the world. You are completely fallen into ignorance. You go into shell. Envelopment is also a quality of tamas, where you say that I don't want to interact with outer world at all. I don't want to see about myself. I just want to take a blanket and sit and don't go out, which is also a quality of. So everybody, in a way, if they are balanced, they support each other. So sattva, obviously it is up there, it has a quality of goodness, but that goodness cannot be manifested without rajas. And rajas cannot be controlled without tamas, because it's kind of contradictory to the quality of action and quality of inertia. They kind of brings forth the
movement or the
movement. So this, your tamas is on a physical plane. Rajas is more prominent on a vital plane, and Sattva is more prominent on a mental plane.
And we've not yet reached the psychic at all.
No, we are not yet on a psychic at all. Yes. But what I love about this, why this integral mathematics, is what I love saying is, if you see the numbers, there is Shunya, which talks about something that is already there, but it doesn't exist, which is Avyakta.
Which
and
contains
then
everything within itself, yet it is nothing.
Yes, it is not. Yet it is nothing. And then it manifests into something, and it always has 3. There is always number 1, 2 and 3. So in occultism they say that we don't know where number 4 come from. It's called emperor in occultism. Mother was really, she loved occultism, isn't it? And she said, this number 4, we don't know where it come from. We understand 1, 2 and 3, but 4 we don't understand. If you see here, there is always the state of being neutral, and there is Urdhva Gamana or Adho Gamana. 3 states. There is either you can be on this side, left side, right side, or a neutral side. You can be either for it, against it, or not have any opinion. So there is always 3. And we are humans, we understand number 3 because we ourselves are 3-dimensional beings. So this is something somewhere relates to me. You know, it's very interesting for me to figure out.
To put this perspective that you have the 3 dimensions,
yes.
You have the 3 gunas,
yes.
You have your either right, wrong or neutral.
Yes, yes. And there is also, it's not just enough, there are 3 bandhas, 3 types of bondages, 3 types of liberations, 3 types of proofs. So everything is 3, which we will see probably at in the November month, but it's always 3. So once we finish with the whole Sankhya philosophy, we will try to actually we will bring in the mathematicians, the works of the mathematicians, not the real mathematicians, and we'll try to see how exactly this math is so close, because I have a hypothesis that if you really want to go close to the truth, then on the lines of the mother Sri Aurobindo, then she talks about perfection of physical, and then exactitude of vital, and then mental, and then she goes to psychic. So these bottom 3 planes, physical, vital and mental, they can really attain that perfection or exactitudeness, or being in a proper equilibrium, state of equilibrium at the mental state through mathematics. And then it becomes, once you cross over these 3 planes, then the journey which is onwards psychic being, which is Vijnana, and above that is quite easy. It's like you are into autopilot mode after that.
One step and all is sky and God.
Kind of.
I mean, Sri Aurobindo's poem says that you hill after hill was climbed, and now behold the last tremendous brow.
Yes.
And so you just have to one step, and but it is that one step is the culmination of all these, surmounting all these obstacles or
yes.
all these experiences,
yes.
which this is the sarancha of everything that has happened before.
Yes.
And it cannot be, it is not that just that one step, because if you just think of that one step, it feels as if it's nothing, but it cannot be achieved unless the experiences of all the others
yes.
are taken into account.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I want to push for the right perspective towards learning mathematics, because mathematics is universal, it's a language, and if you understand it correctly, if you learn to speak it correctly, this can really help you into walking on the path of righteousness or virtue, and give you the right kind of knowledge, and it will give you the ability of seeing through the minute details. It will also make you realize and manifest the quality of vairagya in you. Yeah. So, yeah, I think